The iPad lineup is more confusing than ever. We get those flashy ads, influencers hyping the word Pro, and students everywhere rushing to buy whatever looks the newest. But here's the thing, not all iPads are made for students. Some are straight up overkill and the others just bad value. So if you're a student and planning to buy an iPad this year, then this video might save you from making an expensive mistake. I have the iPad Air and the iPad Pro as well, but the iPad 11 Gen might be the most ideal choice for you if you're a student. The iPad A16 released earlier this year, and this one might be the ultimate option for you. Let's uncover the true power of the A16 chipset. My name is Prithviraj and I create videos on productivity, tech and life. The iPad A16 is very similar to its predecessor, the iPad 10 Gen. The real upgrade over the iPad 10 Gen is in terms of its performance. And it's just not the performance or the price that makes the iPad 11 Gen stand out. What really sealed the deal for me? The way it handles the note-taking aspect. I will show that to you in a minute, but first, let's break down the basics. Talking of the design, this is probably the most comfortable size for a tablet. It's portable enough to carry around and also offers great screen real estate for taking notes. We have an all-aluminum body which looks fresh and premium. We also have a cellular variant for this iPad, so if that's something you might require, we have that. And also, we have the fingerprint scanner or the Touch ID on the power button for easy access. The iPad 11 features an 11-inch Liquid Retina IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1640 by 2360 pixels. Also, it has a brightness of 500 nits. If you're in a well-lit room, the display might feel a bit dim, so yeah, keep that in mind. But overall, the display is really sharp and perfect for media consumption. I've been binge watching my favorite shows quite a lot on this device, and I really had a great experience. But sadly, it only features a screen refresh rate of 60Hz, which isn't really the smoothest display to be very honest. And also, I didn't expect Apple to feature a 120Hz display on the iPad 11, solely because even the new iPad Air M3 has a display refresh rate of 60Hz, and that's really sad. But this thing is a big one. If you're looking for pinpoint precision while note-taking, the display is not laminated, which means there is a slight gap between the glass and the actual display. If you're coming from an older iPad, you might not even notice it. But for digital artists and serious note-takers, this can be a deal breaker. We will discuss about that a little later, but the overall viewing experience is great on this device. You won't be facing any issues binge watching your favorite shows and series, or even scrolling social media. And speaking of media consumption, the speakers on the iPad are solid, good stereo separation, loud enough for most people, but obviously they are not as immersive as that of the iPad Air or the iPad Pro, but the audio has that warmth that I often look for. Hence, listening to music over here is checked. Everything sounds full and balanced with great clarity, so the dialogues would be crystal clear. We get crisp visuals and clear audio, but then when I pull out the Apple Pencil, this is where the things get interesting. The note-taking experience is wildly underrated. More on that soon, and not to forget the main star of the show, and that is the A16 chipset. And also, before talking about the performance aspect, can you please consider hitting that subscribe button? And I promise to keep bringing you more such videos. The A16 Bionic chipset is a solid upgrade over the A14 chipset of the iPad 10 Gen, and it's paired with 6 gigs of RAM and running on iPadOS 18, and of course it will get the iPadOS 26 upgrade. Storage wise, we get a few options, 128, 256 as well as a 512 gigs variant. The base variant finally features 128 gigs. If you remember, the iPad 10 Gen only offered 64 gigs or 256 gigs variant. We did not have the sweet midpoint of 128 gigs, so this was a much needed change. And in real world usage, this thing is fast. Apps open quickly, multitasking is smooth, and it also excels in gaming. Here are the benchmark scores on Geekbench in case you are into nerdy stuff like that, and as you can see, it really performed well. And thanks to iPadOS 18, we get some solid multitasking features, and in case you wanted to do some video editing on this device, well, you can do that comfortably. It will of course start to struggle with 4K videos, but with 1080p HD content, it will work just fine. One drawback in terms of software is that the iPad 11 Gen does not support the Apple Stage Manager feature. The Stage Manager basically transforms your iPad into a desktop-like interface where you can work on floating windows. That's a great tool for multitasking, but sadly, it's missing here. But not to worry, with the iPadOS 26 upgrade later this year, this issue will be fixed, but I really doubt the performance a bit, so I'll be making an updated video once it rolls out. But other than that, the app ecosystem of the iPad is simply unmatched. You get access to professional apps like DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro for video editing, Procreate and Procreate Dreams for doing digital art and animation, with Note 6 and Notability for handwritten notes, and 90% of the apps I just mentioned are not available on Android tablets. Hence, the iPad can turn out to be a great starting point if you actually wanted to test a few things out before you think of going pro. I primarily prefer DaVinci Resolve for video editing, but running that app can be a real headache at times over here. And also, it makes sense as this tablet is not marketed for max performance. But yeah, if that's something you require, then you should reconsider. The A16 chipset is powerful, but it's not at the same level as the Apple Silicon M series chipsets that we get in the iPad Air and the Pro models. But all in all, the iPad 11 offers us great performance for creativity and productivity. And when it comes to the battery life, it features a 7698 mAh battery. Apple claims up to 10 hours of web browsing or video playback, and in my testing, it holds up pretty well. It lasted almost a full day of mixed usage, and while it does support USB Type-C charging, there is no real fast charging. We get a 20-watt charger out of the box. This 20-watt charger is what Apple considers as fast charging. I don't know why though. While it might not be fast as some of the higher wattage chargers seen on the iPad Pro models, but still it's a significant improvement over the older lower wattage iPad chargers. But it still takes over 2 hours to fully charge, so not the worst, but definitely something you should keep in mind. And in case you would like to occasionally play games on this device, then it can handle that as well. I tested out games like Asphalt, BGMI, GTA Vice City and a few more. You can run most games at medium to high settings without major frame drops. Everything feels smooth in my experience so far. I haven't really noticed any stutters so far, but it surely got heated up quite a lot during extended gaming sessions. That being said, this is still a 60Hz display, so you're not getting that ultra smooth refresh rates like the iPad Pro or some other Android tablets that too in a budget. Also, let's talk about the camera a bit. As for attending your online classes and video calls in general, this can come in real handy. The iPad 11 features a 12 megapixel rear camera as well as a 12 megapixel selfie camera. So this is the front camera test of the iPad 11. Whatever you're listening to is also coming from the iPad, and as you can see, the quality is good enough, so you won't be facing any issues attending meetings and video calls. And now let's address the elephant in the room, and that is note taking and the overall stylus experience. The iPad 11 supports the Apple Pencil 1st Gen as well as the USB Type-C Apple Pencil. It sadly doesn't have magnetic charging support, hence it does not support the 2nd Gen Apple Pencil as well as the Apple Pencil Pro. I recommend that you get the Type-C Apple Pencil as it's comparatively much more convenient, as you don't have to deal with a lot of adapters and stuff that you get with the 1st Gen Apple Pencil. It's clunky, easy to lose and totally unnecessary. And let's not forget the risk of losing that tiny cap on that pencil. That being said, the Type-C Apple Pencil is also cheaper. And speaking of that, you will have to buy the Apple Pencil separately, so yeah, please keep that in mind. Now let's talk about the writing experience. The writing feel here on the iPad 11 is super smooth. The strokes feel natural and I didn't face any issues with the latency, as well as the palm rejection aspect was spot on. Although I previously mentioned that the display is not laminated, as in you can visibly see the slight gap between the screen and the display, but for on-the-go note-taking that is not really noticeable, to be honest. But if you're a digital artist, then this thing can turn out to be real annoying, especially when you want to get your work done with maximum precision. But for the note-taking side of things, it won't really be that much of an issue. The biggest advantage you get with an iPad over any Android tablet is that you'll get a lot more options to choose from if you're in the market looking for the best note-taking app. My personal favorite is GoodNote 6. The handwriting experience has been great and it feels really natural on this app. I literally manage my life using GoodNote 6 using my daily planner template. It really helps me stay super productive and accountable. I'll leave the link of my template in the description box below the like button, so please check it out if you're interested. GoodNote 6 is a paid app, so please keep that in mind. But even the default note-taking app on this device is simply amazing. Apple Notes. You can access it for free. It is great for managing text-based notes. It's super powerful in that aspect. And it can also be a great starting point for handwritten notes as well, before you actually decide on buying any other note-taking app. Why I say this is because the handwriting experience on Apple Notes isn't really the best, especially when compared to apps like GoodNote 6 or Notability. You can't even zoom inside Apple Notes, and that's really disappointing. Apple also offers another free app called Freeform. It's basically an infinite canvas app similar to the popular app called Concepts. This can be a great app for brainstorming ideas or maybe just getting your thoughts down on paper or screen for this aspect. I do plan on making a dedicated video on this app, so please let me know if that's something you might be interested in. But looking at this in a general way, this can be a great device if you're a student and you're looking for a tablet where you can take your class notes or maybe import your PDFs and use it as your default workbook. It totally excels in that aspect. You will be able to manage your notes quite nicely here on this iPad, and the writing will feel simply amazing. Here is a screenshot of the current pricing of the iPad 11 Gen on Amazon India as well as on Amazon US. And here's a screenshot of the current pricing of the Type-C Apple Pencil as well. Now speaking of the pricing, it's fairly priced, to be very honest, as the last time Apple was offering the 64 gigs variant in the same price, whereas we are getting the 128 gigs version for this price point this time. So what is the verdict? Should you buy the iPad 11 or should you simply buy something advanced like the iPad Air? Well, if you're on a tight budget, then this is the best possible option. It checks many boxes that you need in a budget tablet. It excels in note-taking, which makes it ideal for students, or even if you're a casual user or anyone who simply needs a reliable tablet for media consumption. The A16 Bionic chipset gives it a performance boost. The display is quite good despite not being laminated, and the battery life is pretty solid. But if you already have the iPad 10 Gen, this upgrade might not really be worth it. And if you're into digital art, then the iPad Air is a much better choice because of its laminated display and better accessory support, as in you get to use the flagship Apple Pencil Pro along with it. It's much more precise and almost no latency at all. It also features the same Apple Silicon M series chipsets that you find on the MacBook. That's a total overkill if you're looking for a note-taking tablet. So you can of course save yourself some money by getting the iPad 11 Gen. This one is the ideal midpoint if you're a student, and thus making it the best iPad on a budget. But in case you're a little more flexible with your budget and want a better performance for heavy tasks like video editing, animation, or maybe digital art, then you should consider checking out the iPad Air. It's damn powerful. Click here on this video, and over there we have discussed about the iPad Air in more details. See you there.